My name is Chad Salyer, and I'm from Fort Worth, Texas, born and raised.
Yeah, and Chad, I met you. I think I met you for the first time. Was it at the Backland back in 2021?
Yep, yeah, that was my first interaction with you and Texas Outlaw, and uh, been been at your races and seeing your races grow ever since. So, been cool
Yeah,
to see.
yeah. Well, appreciate that, man. Um I remember whenever you first came out, and I started following you on Facebook. I noticed you had that blue banner around like your profile, and is it called cystic fibrosis? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, it's called
Yeah.
cystic fibrosis or CF for short.
Okay. And one of the main reasons I wanted to talk to you and have you on is because um I saw that you had like a donation page open, and I was really interested and intrigued by it, as far as like what it was and what your cause was. And so I know you just ran the Bigfoot 200, it's a 200-mile race in um up north, and you were raising money for this cause. Could you tell me a little bit about what it is and why you're raising money for it? That's really what I want to know.
Yeah, I mean it's pretty complicated genetic disorder,
Yeah.
so yeah, we can talk about it a little. I'll do my best to explain it, but yeah, so cystic fibrosis is a genetic disorder that is caused when one mutated gene from each parent is passed down to the child, which creates two mutations. I mean, I think a lot of people have one. I think like 90% of people have one mutated gene, which doesn't create issues until there's two, when it's the CFTR gene. So it creates a thick, sticky mucus within anyone who has it. Um, so the genes in the cells aren't getting sodium where they need to be. So most people have thin mucus that kind of pushes bacteria out of the cells and kind of carries it out of your body, where someone with CF has thick, sticky mucus inside. So it kind of catches bacteria, clogs airways, and creates a lot of issues with people that have it. So a lot of people think of it as a lung thing, which it does mainly affect the lungs, and that's where a lot of the complications come up. But it does affect other organs like the pancreas and the liver and the digestive system. So there are close to like 2,000 different types of mutations. So it is very different for each individual. It's not kind of a one size fits all. So it does get complicated with different ailments and different symptoms coming from that. Um, and the reason it's so close to my heart is because my 7-year-old Beckett has it.
Yeah.
So once I heard those words, we never had anyone on either side with it. So it was brand new to us and kind of flipped everything on its head once we heard those words and kind of changed the course of, you know, our life forever. So, and that's kind of why I'm always trying to raise awareness, because it is a rare disease. I think 70 to 80 people, 80,000 people in the US have it. So it's not a large number. So creating awareness is always important. But I mean, that's kind of it in a nutshell, um, for the most part.
Yeah. So what age did y'all find out? How old was he when y'all found out?
So it's through the newborn screening process. So a lot of hospitals will do that. It's kind of new from, I think, 2010 or so it started. So they told us he could have cystic fibrosis, but they needed to run more tests. So we went home from the hospital and then got a letter, saying we need to do more testing. And then once we did the what they call it a sweat test, so they put these heat conductors on uh, Beckett's arm, and
Yeah.
they kind of read the sodium levels in his sweat, and it was really high. So that kind of confirmed that he did have CF. And then after that, we went and got the genetic testing to kind of know exactly what the mutations were. So we
Okay.
knew pretty much at birth. And it is a genetic thing, so that people with CF have it when they're born. It's not something you catch or you can get from somebody else. It's purely genetic. So it was passed down at birth.
Yeah, and what are some of the long-term effects of this of CF?
Some of the long-term effects are just lung damage from infections with the bacteria kind of harboring in their lungs and just creating a bunch of different issues. And then the mucus begins to clog the airways as they get older. And the kind of thick, sticky mucus just gets thicker and thicker as years go on, which is why they do have to do breathing treatments in the morning and at night. So when they wake up, they're doing a thing called the vest, which kind of they hook up to, and it shakes them pretty good for like 20 to 30 minutes to knock the mucus loose. And then they also do breathing machines, so like nebulized medicine, so like albuterol and saline to kind of, which is pretty much salt water to kind of thin it out and kind of get the mucus moving. So, which is another reason why being active is so important, which is kind of what led me to being to running and trying to create a positive lifestyle for Beckett to kind of follow in and try to create that as the norm. So
Yeah, so before, um, so did you start running because of this?
um so I grew up playing soccer. I played soccer my entire life. My older brother played professionally for FC Dallas, so that was kind of the path that I followed in because that's kind of all I knew and saw. So I played soccer up to college. I went to Rutgers University for a couple of years and played and realized New Jersey is not necessarily the place I want to be or where I fit in, I guess, as far as being someone from Texas. But um, I was up there for a couple of years and then came home, went up to Midwestern State and played for a year, and then was kind of floating around trying to figure out what I wanted to do, not doing anything positive with my life, more so partying and hanging out with the wrong people, doing things that didn't make me any better, it just made me worse. So
Yeah.
um, I had Beckett in 2016, and that kind of flipped everything on its head after I heard he had cystic fibrosis. So my brother was training for the Cowtown Marathon. He just kind of started running out of nowhere and told me to come on a training run with him. I was like, man, what? I don't want to go run for no reason. I was always that person that only wanted to run if there was a ball in front of me and kind of looked at running as a punishment or a type of conditioning, so to speak. So always had a negative relationship with running. Didn't like it. Always made fun of my soccer teammates about going and running extracurricular events and running to and from practice and stuff like that. So, but once my brother invited me to go on that training run with the new baby and cystic fibrosis causing a lot of stress, and it was actually creating bald spots on my beard and hair because I was so stressed out and not knowing I needed an outlet after that run. Like being on that run just kind of made all the worries and stress kind of disappear for that short period of time. And I had no idea running had that ability. So um, after that, I was hooked. I was like, man, this is exactly what I needed. And then I signed up for a half marathon on the road. Uh, did okay in that. It was painful. It was not. I didn't get like the runner's high or anything like that. And I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. And then started hearing more and more about these trail races and trail running. So jumped into a 50K at Nob Hill,
Yep.
put on by Denton Area Running Club. And after being on the trail and just in nature, and then hearing people congratulate me as I passed them, or as they passed me, they were super encouraging and nice. And I was like, well, what is going on? Why are people I'm competing against being nice to me? Like, this is not something I've experienced before. This is really strange, but I loved it. So the community of the trails just kind of dragged me in and made me feel like, oh, this is what I've been missing. This is what I need. And since then, it's been full steam ahead. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, since then you've completed a lot of really great feats, and I mean, whenever I think of like whenever I see your name or someone talks about you on Facebook or something, I can't help but think that's the guy that's never stops running in the race. Like you could go on forever and you're fast too. Like you can win. So, and you
depends
did
who you
pretty good at you
depends who
did
you ask.
do what?
Depends who you ask, I guess.
Yeah, yeah, you did pretty good at this 200-mile race. I want to say you got what, top 10 maybe, or
I think I finished 15.
okay, okay. Still, that's pretty cool being from Texas and there being what 200 something people there. So,
Yeah, I think there's like 208 registrants, I believe. So
yeah.
definitely happy with how it went, being my first one and it being one of the more difficult 200s in the country. So definitely pleased with how it went and learned a ton. So
Yeah,
definitely.
what kind of effect have you seen on your son from you know, running all the time and doing that? How has he responded to that?
Yeah, I think at this age, he's 7 still. So um, he's not a real big fan of just going out and running for
Yeah.
no reason, especially in this Texas heat. But you know, he sees it, and I mean, I think eventually it'll hopefully just be the normal lifestyle. But yeah, I can see it clear. Like when we do our goals, we always try to come up with goals at the end of the year, and one of his was to run a 5K, and that was totally unprompted and his idea. So hearing things like that make it all worthwhile. And coming home and telling him, "Oh, I ran 200 miles," he's like, what does that mean? Who cares? Like, give me the cool trophy type thing. So
Yeah.
now it's maybe not gonna make the biggest difference, but hopefully, in years to come, it'll rub off on him a little bit because I'm not trying to push him towards it or anything. I just kind of want to engulf him in that lifestyle, and hopefully, it kind of creates a normal, active lifestyle. So we'll see.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really neat, man. That's cool. So another thing I was curious about is um what people are donating towards. What is that? What does that look like practically about the money you're raising? What does that look like?
Yeah, so I usually pick like one, maybe two races a year to kind of focus donations towards. It's usually one of the more difficult races, probably my A race for the year. And then I create a fundraising page and kind of write about our story a little bit, kind of updates on the year and kind of why I do these races and kind of my mindset going into it. And then, of course, like educational pieces and medical updates. So, and then I share that out before the race and after the race to try to reach a goal. I think I'm at a little over 3,000 right now, so still looking to get to 7,500 for the year. So, and 100% of the donations go to the CF Foundation. They're all 100% tax deductible as well. So there's a website set up, and the money goes directly to the foundation. So I don't even see it or touch it; it just goes straight to them, which is nice. So,
Yeah, and for everybody listening right now, I'm gonna link that in the description, and I'm also, which I might throw this in at the beginning of the podcast, but for every download this gets, so for every person that listens to it, I'm gonna donate $1 towards it. So, if a couple hundred people to 1,000 people listen to it, that's how much I'll donate. And so, this is also to encourage people to share it too. So it'll help create awareness for it as well. So, people who are listening right now, share this podcast because if someone just clicks the play button on it and listens to it, doesn't matter if they're on a car ride, long run, um, I'm gonna donate towards that, and I encourage all you listening to donate towards it too. So
okay. I appreciate that. That means a lot.
yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, it's I mean it's a serious condition, and and I can see how much it means to you personally, and so it's really cool to see what you're doing, man, and that you're doing what you are, and you're so consistent with it too. So
Yeah, it definitely makes these tough races feel a little bit easier with that
yeah,
support and kind of that, bigger picture thing in mind as I'm out there struggling at times.
yeah. So before this 200-mile race, have you done any 200s before this one?
No, this is my first one. I had done the Cactus Rose 150 when they were doing that distance, so I had a little bit of experience with just like the multi-day stuff, but that 150 took me like 48 hours, so this was kind of a whole new uh realm going into 3 to 4 nights, maybe. So it was kind of a learning process, and then my crew had never done a 200 either, so we were all just newbies trying to figure it out along the way. And Bigfoot is a very difficult race to crew because there's you don't have cell service for probably 90 some % of the race, so there's no way for them to track me and know when I'm coming in. It's kind of more of a guess, which you know it led to some lateness to some aid stations, not seeing them at one, and then um, just them driving 3 to 4 hours too in between aid stations was all a learning process for all of us along the way. So it was definitely a beating, but it was equally beautiful. So it kind of cancels each other out.
Yeah, it was up there in the state of Washington, right?
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of start near Mount St. Helens,
Yeah.
and kind of go through the blast zone of that volcano, which was crazy to see just how powerful that volcano blast was and how it just laid all these trees down like they were paper. It was crazy. It was pretty magnificent to experience because the first part you kind of go all around Mount St. Helens, which is super exposed with not a lot of trees, and it can get up to 100+ degrees in there. But we got lucky the first day with pretty good temperatures, and I don't think it got above 80, so it was nice on the first day. But
Yeah, especially with these temps we've been having around here.
oh yeah, it was
Yeah.
nice to look back the day before the race and be like, oh, it's 108 at home, so I should be grateful I'm here right now, no matter how hard or how bad it's gonna hurt. So
Yeah. Yeah, I know that cooler weather when you go from that heat to that cooler weather, you feel kind of in a way indestructible.
yeah,
No,
feeling like I could run forever.
yeah, yeah. So you it looks like you had a pretty big crew out there with you doing this 200-mile race. Out of all these 200-mile races, why'd you choose this one?
I chose this one. I think it has the most gain, elevation gain for any of the 200s I saw in the U.S. And then I really kind of signed up on a whim. I saw the lottery was open and I saw the advertisement for it. And I think it was like the second to last day to do it. I was like, yeah, let's see. I mean, I don't think I'll get picked. And then sure enough, yeah, I saw the money get taken out of my credit card and I was like, oh, nah, I guess it's go time. So I had a year to kind of plan for it, and which was well before we knew we were going to have another kid, which is due September 16th in a
Oh
month.
man,
So it was
that's coming up, man.
real quick. So it's definitely an added stress going into the race, knowing that the baby could come early and we don't have cell service, and it was
What was
definitely
that?
stressful going into it. So
Yeah, yeah. So what was your plan there if the baby, were to come early? Was she there with you or
no, she stayed home just because she is so pregnant right now, and traveling
what
would
would
not be
you
fun, and being stuck in that van for 4 or 5 days would not have been enjoyable for her. So
yeah.
her and Beckett stayed back. Um, but luckily, Jake Richter, a local runner here, that allowed me to use his Zolio, which is a satellite device that allows you to send messages while you don't have any service. So
Yeah.
that was definitely a little bit of peace of mind, but it was still very stressful.
What was your game plan if if she were to
So I went back and forth about it because even if she did go into labor and I did get the message while I was out there, I probably wouldn't have made it back in time, realistically. Airport's like 2 to 3 hours away. The flight's like 3 hours plus the time change. Um, so we came up with a plan to if it was like mid race to go ahead and finish and then to get my butt home.
yeah.
But it would have been hard. It would have been if it came the day before. It would have been tough to just go about racing and not try to get home. So I was just hoping I didn't have to make that decision. So luckily I didn't. I didn't have to. So
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's pretty high tension scenario there. So,
yes, definitely. And then it was the day I left too was Beckett's first day of school, and
oh man.
I just hit all of the milestones that I missed this year. So it was hard because I didn't, it's a year out, so I didn't really look at dates and everything that was happening beforehand. So lesson learned for
Oh
sure.
yeah. Yeah, for sure. Um, yeah, man. Well, I'm glad that you were able to complete it and don't have to worry about that stress then. So,
Thank you.
cool, man. Well, how was can you tell me a little bit about the experience of this race of this Bigfoot 200, kind of your I guess not in a way, not your race report necessarily, but kind of just your whole experience, the beginning to the end, the highs and the lows.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so I mean it started out the first day went pretty smooth. I was pretty conservative, tried to kind of stay towards the middle of the pack for the most part and kind of just talk to people and enjoy it. Um, and I actually did. I talked to a lot of people that were doing the Triple Crown and picked their brains on what they do and what they did at their races to kind of, you know, find some things that I could steal from them. And I kind of went into the race with a strategy to try to push through the first night and kind of sleep either in the middle of the day, the second day, or in the second night. But after talking to a bunch of people, they're like, man, try to sleep early, sleep the first night if you can. So I changed my sleep strategy as I was running, talking to people. I was like, I guess I should probably try to sleep the first night. So, the first I didn't see my crew until mile 30. So you can't have crew at the first aid station, which, you know, everyone's spirits are high and energy is super high. So everyone's moving fine. And it's so early in the race. Everyone's going pretty slow. So there's no issues there. Made it to Windy Ridge at mile 30 and saw my crew, which was really nice to see. Was still feeling good at that point. No issues at all. It was starting to get a little warm, but not for me, so to speak, but for most people, they're like, "Oh, it's warm. Like, oh, this is like winter to me." Um, so that was good. I saw my crew and took off to the next aid station, which was Coldwater Lake at mile 45. And you can pick up a pacer here, but we decided to skip it just because of the driving. They would have had to drive like 6 more hours if they went to Windy Ridge and Coldwater. So we skipped that one. And then, so after Coldwater, at mile 45 is a really big climb and a long section. So, and this was like starting at the first night. So it was, I went through the first night all by myself in the dark, which got pretty brutal. It was an 18-ish mile section with a good amount of climbing. So I didn't take any caffeine in the first day. So by the nighttime, I was super tired. And then my plan was to take it on this section, but since I changed my sleep strategy to sleep at the next aid station, I went without it. So by the end of this section, I was pretty much sleep running. I kept falling asleep and waking up a few steps down the trail. So I was like, okay, it's definitely time to sleep. So I got to Norway Pass, it's like mile 64. Um, after I think that section before took me like 8 hours. So it was a grind at night, and there were some snow patches that I fell in, and it was just a grind. So that nighttime staring at that headlamp too just beat me up. So once I got to Norway Pass, I slept for 30 minutes, and that was my first sleep. I think I got in like 2 a.m. or 3. So I slept for like 30 minutes, and then I think I got out of there around 4 a.m. with my first pacer, Sean, my brother. He jumped in there. Um, so the net, which was really nice to have somebody running with me because I was in my head a lot and kind of getting negative before this section.
Yeah.
Um, so once he jumped in, it was a lot more positive. And, the sun came up like an hour after we left, and that completely changed my mindset and just got me moving a lot better and made me feel a lot happier. So we made it to the next section. This was a pretty tame section, so it's kind of flat. Made it to Elk Pass with no issues, moving pretty well. And then from Elk Pass so that's mile 75 to 90. Things were going good. I didn't have any issues, moving well, legs felt good, um, moving along just fine. And then get to road 9327, which is mile 90. Um, and the crew was supposed to be there, but we hadn't seen them yet. So we waited. I ate, took my socks and shoes off, let my feet dry out, all that stuff, and was hoping to see them. But we waited like 45 minutes, 50 minutes, and we're like, all right, they probably got lost or stuck in traffic, who knows? But I'm gonna go ahead and take off without the crew. And my brother stayed back so he could tell them kind of what happened. So then I was hoping to see him at the next aid station, um, but yeah. So I did the next section with no poles either because I had left them the section before because I thought it was going to be a flatter section, which was a mistake. So definitely should have taken them with me. Took a beating on that one, but I was able to pick up Tristan, my pacer, around mile 100 to jump in before Lewis River, which is at mile 108, because that's like the crux of the course. I think it's 18-mile section with 7,000 feet of climbing. So it's just brutally nonstop, just up, up, up. And that took us probably like 8 to 10 hours, but also one of the most beautiful sections because you see waterfalls, huge pine trees, just all sorts of different terrain. But yeah, that's where Tristan Mitchell jumped in with me. We had a great time that whole section until about 3 miles out to where this is one of my low spots of the race. Ran out of nutrition, was just bonking hard
Mm.
for a long time. You hit the last 3 miles of that section, and it's a lot of loose sand. So you're just running in this loose sand and dusty, and can't get good footing, and it was just a beating. So I would take like 10 to 12 steps and have to sit and take a break, 15 steps, sit, take a break, and then try to eat a little bit that I had, but try to conserve it as well.
Is that just because you had no fuel coming in your body and so you just didn't have a lot of energy to put out?
Yeah, so I think it's a combination of the sleep deprivation and lack of calories. So I think those two combined just put me in a bad, dark place. But luckily, Tristan was there to keep me positive and kind of keep me moving forward. And we put on some music towards the top at the end, and it totally changed kind of my mindset and kept me moving a little bit better than before we had it on. So that was the only time I listened to music the whole time, and that was for like maybe like 30 to 40 minutes. So
Yeah.
it was a game changer though. And then we finally get to Quartz Ridge, and that's where I think I slept for like an hour at like mile 126. Um, and then from there, I picked up Sean again to pace, and we went from there to Chain of Lakes, which is mile like 142, which was a beautiful section. Is when the sun was coming up. We caught the sunrise. So it was a really nice section to share with my brother, and just seeing the views from the top of the mountains during the day was awesome because some of the more scenic sections I did at nighttime, so I missed
Mm.
a lot of the views. But what are you gonna do? So I'll just have to go back, I guess, and run faster or slower, either one. But yeah, so with that one with Sean from Chain of Lakes, mile 142 went pretty smooth, ran a lot of it. And then from Chain of Lakes to Klickitat, I picked up Tristan again. I can't remember if I slept a little bit or not, but this section kicked my butt because we left and it's flat for a long time. So and then we get out to kind of this out and back where you got to climb a bunch of steep ups that's kind of loose. Um, and I realized, oh, I didn't have my bladder didn't get filled up, and that's like an 18-mile section. So
Jeez.
we had to go searching for water before, and then luckily we found a spigot that had it after going off course for maybe like a mile. But and then of course after that, like 100 yards down, there was a river crossing that had water that I didn't probably didn't need to go off course, but that's how it goes. So, but right before that, that's before the climb, and then it was another just brutal climbing in the heat. This is when the heat started getting bad. It was starting to get into like the 90s, 98 degrees that day. So there's a lot of carnage that day. A lot of people sitting on the side trying to cool off and put in some nutrients and drink. But after we got to the top of that, we came down, or we went to the Klickitat aid station. That's a mile 160. And then from there, I picked up David, who's from Washington, but I met him at Achilles Hill, last man standing, and he was on the wait list for Bigfoot somehow. And I was like, if you don't get in, man, just come and pace me. And sure enough, he showed up to pace me at mile 160. He lived like 3 hours from there. So it's really cool. And we went from Klickitat to Twin Sisters, which was a lot better than the previous section. I did sleep, I think, for 30 minutes at Klickitat now that I'm thinking about it and talking about it. But I was expecting this section to be really overgrown and bad with bugs from what I had heard. But this is actually a really smooth and flowy section where I ran a lot more than I was expecting. And then we got into Twin Sisters. That's at mile 179. And, felt pretty good. But leaving here, man, this section it was an ass kicker because it was a bunch of down trees. So you have to climb up, over, under trees. A lot of the trails overgrown. There's a 5-mile section called the Green Tunnel, and it looks like a bomb went off for 5 miles. I don't even know what happened, but there's just down trees. There's like no trail. There's limbs and stuff on the ground that's tripping you. You're having to bushwhack. You're having to go around trees, under trees. And then there's like these soft spots in the dirt where
Yeah.
your foot goes straight through. I guess they're like mole holes or some type of animal hole, where my foot like would go through and up to my knee. So it was just one of those sections where you gotta laugh because of how brutal and how miserable you are. Because I was just cussing and I was upset at this point, and then feeling sorry for myself. So once I got close to the end, it was definitely a great feeling to know that once I got to Owens Creek, it's all downhill. Like it's a Jeep road down to a paved road, and then you take that paved road all the way into the high school, which was getting hot during that part of the day as well. So, and then we ran it in and then got to the track. My whole crew jumped on the track and we were able to run around the track together and all finish together. So it was really special to share the finish with everybody and just make it that far with them, because it was not equally as hard, but it was it was pretty hard on them as far as just navigating and mileage and lack of sleep and all that too. So I know they were hurting too, and they were ready to be done as well. So it was nice to finally cross that finish line.
Yeah. And you crossed that finish line how many days ago?
That was on days are still weird right now. So it was Monday morning at like it might have been around 10 or 11,
Okay.
somewhere around there.
Yeah.
It took me 73 hours. So
So a few days ago then.
yeah, so a few days ago. Still got a little bit of brain fog and some fatigue, but it's getting better.
Yeah. Yeah. What's the after effects like of running 200 miles?
So it's weird. The first day or half a day after I felt okay, but it's been getting weirdly worse. So my legs are super swollen, my ankles are swollen, my feet are still swollen. Um, but energy's still down. But the muscles are okay because of how much hiking it is. It's not a ton of pounding, except for the downhills is brutal, but they feel okay. It's just the swelling, and then like the joints are in rough shape. So, and then the energy level and the brain fog is still very, very much there. So,
Yeah. Sounds like a rough. It sounds like it doesn't end whenever you cross the finish line there. It just keeps going.
yeah, yeah, we're still trying to figure it out, but I mean, it's getting a little better each day. It's just these cankles need to go for sure.
Yeah. So how did you train for running 200 miles? What does that look like?
Um, I don't have a coach, so it's kind of taking stuff from one, kind of seeing if it works for me. But I did have so after the backlands, I did have an IT band
Yeah.
injury for it felt like forever, but
From all
I
that
guess
mud.
like 4 or 5 months. Yeah, that mud, man, I still have nightmares about it. Um, but yeah, so I had that injury up until May, up until I paced Nick at Cocodona
Yeah.
Peterson, because I committed to pacing him and was trying to train and do all this, but couldn't. And I feel like I kept re-injuring it just because I wasn't taking enough time off. So I just ended up taking a few weeks off before facing Nick at Cocodona, where I learned a ton of stuff that helped me get through the 200.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I paced him and it didn't have any issues. So that's kind of when the training kind of kicked off for me as far as like a full block of training, which was May. So that was about 2 months out. I wanted to do a little bit more base building before that, but what can you do? I kind of took what I had and kind of went from there and just started kind of with the 30 to 50 mile base for the first 2 to 3 weeks, just to get a little bit of base under me. And then from there, I think it's about 4 to 6 weeks out. I kind of started upping the mileage and upping the vert. And being a dad and then having a pregnant wife, it makes it difficult to train as much as I might have wanted to. So one thing I did try to focus on in between was wearing I got a 40-pound weighted vest. So when I was at home doing the dishes or mowing the lawn or watching a movie, I would just have the weighted vest on and kind of do these little one leg exercises or squats or, anything to kind of supplement the training when I was at home with the family to, kind of give me a little bit of extra strength training in between,
Yeah.
which I think helped a lot, but I didn't know, I guess. But so that's kind of what I did in between, and I would do some strength training, um, kind of mixed in once to twice a week, but mainly it was a lot of hill repeats at Sampson over here, the trail we got over here in Fort Worth. Um, a lot of hill repeats, a lot of running with Tristan, my pacer, and a bunch of people from the area. And Aaron that was actually out at Bigfoot with us, just kind of doing hill repeats and training in the sun as much as I could without completely destroying myself. Um, and then, it's just a lot of time on feet. So at work, I have a stand up desk, so I'm able to stand up all day, and just try to kind of throw those little things in that throughout the day with work or the weighted vest or going on scooter rides with Beckett, I would wear the weighted vest, and just figuring out ways to stay on your feet more, I think was really beneficial for me, especially during the times that I couldn't run with the IT band injury. Um, but I'm not a huge volume guy. I mean, even with 200 miler, I think the peak mileage I got was 90 miles in a week. I think my focus is more on quality rather than quantity. I was trying to get climbing with heat, with some volume. So trying to kind of check all those boxes made for some long, tough days. But I think the heat and uh, the hills and just all the little stuff in between really did help get me ready for Bigfoot.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah, it sounds like a pretty loaded down schedule there. Sounds like a rough 2 months leading into it. So,
Yeah, yeah, and it's one of those things as a runner too. When you're hurt, as you probably know, it's one of those things where you're out of it. So once you get back into it, you feel like you got to make up all this
yep.
time and try to make up for lost time, which they say not to do, but mentally it's almost impossible for me to not
Yeah.
try to do. So,
Yeah. I know what you mean by that for sure. You something you mentioned that I want to touch on. You said you have a standing desk. What does that do for you, standing all day on your feet?
yeah, I think it just gets your body and mind used to standing. Even when you're tired, uh, in a 200, you're standing for 73 hours. So I think just getting your body and your back and mind used to standing helps kind of just prepare your body to be on your feet for long periods of time. And even at work, like if I have a meeting, I'll throw on the weighted vest too and try to do like one leg stuff and try to stretch. It allows me to stretch as well while I'm working. So it just gives me more, um, what's the word? Uh, More options as far as uh, training, stretching, doing things that help benefit my running.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool, man. Yeah, I might have to look into that myself.
Yeah, you should, man. Helps with back, all sorts of stuff. So,
Yeah. So from here on out, like, what do you got going on in the future? Do you got anything planned?
that baby's coming next month. So that's pretty much the focus right now. Was to get through this race and then focus on family time for however long. I'm not sure. I don't have a selected amount of time, but I will be taking off work for. I think my work gives me 6 weeks now, which is amazing. So be focusing on that, and then try to do some local races, maybe closer to home, so I'm not gone for too long, so that it can just be like a day or half a day uh,
Right.
race, not not 4 or 5 days like this last one.
Yeah.
So, and then yeah, continue to I'm grateful to be able to work where I do. I actually work at the CF Foundation as well, so that is my job as well. So putting on events and trying to raise money and awareness is always the goal. So more of that as always. So
Yeah. Well, Nate, man. Well, I appreciate you coming on and sharing everything and taking time to do this. Before we wrap it all up, for the people listening, do you have any advice in general that maybe you want to share?
mm, yeah, I'd say, if there's something out there that scares you and you're not sure you can do it, I mean, I think that's the things you probably need to try to do more of. So don't let the big distances or big elevation gains scare you away. It's all doable. There's just you just got to figure out ways to get it done, which there are plenty of resources and plenty of things out there to do it. So don't let other people's fear become your own. So just do the things you want to do. Don't don't let other people steer you away from
Yeah. Cool. I definitely agree with that. I've learned from an early age that if you go after things and do things that make you really uncomfortable when you think about them, then they're gonna be better than you think whenever you go out and experience them. So,
it. Yeah, agreed. It's always worse in your head than it is in real life.
yep, yep, that's absolutely true. Well, good stuff, man. Well, yeah, man. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for taking the time to do this and sharing all of that. And I'll have everything else linked down in the description. Do you have anything else you wanted to say or talk about?
No, I just appreciate you having me on and let me kind of tell a little bit about my story and about the race. And I'm just grateful for all that you're doing too for the trail community in this area. So
Thanks,
keep
man.
doing what you're doing, man.
I appreciate it, man.